Welcome to our first talk of GameSoundCon. This is the first talk, Hear the Future of UE Audio. We are extremely excited to be sponsoring GameSoundCon this year. It's been a dream of mine for years. Dan and I have been working for a while to make this happen, and Charles and Grace on our team, Grace is co-presenting with us today, and Charles is our producer, worked tirelessly this last year to make this happen. And so I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm thankful for all of you joining us. This room has been built in a partnership with Dolby. Obviously, these are Dolby Atmos. We have some really cool Atmos demos to show. Tomorrow morning, Dolby will be announcing some cool tech, and we'll be doing some deep dives on Atmos and UE. And we hope to utilize these in some of our other talks. Today, our audio examples will be upmixed in Atmos. And we're very happy to have worked with Dolby. And I think this room's awesome. If a little small, it's still really chill and cool, and so thank you. The music that you were hearing in the beginning, we're actually going to have a talk that deep dives on the actual construction of that. It was all running in Blueprint, and essentially it was 12 hours of procedurally recombinant music that played in between one of our seasons in Fortnite. So we thought it would make like kind of nice, chill music to play when people join. All right, so I'm Aaron McLaren, the audio director, or the audio engine director, and presenting with me today is Dan Reynolds, our senior audio technical sound designer, and Grace, our senior audio product manager, senior product manager, but she's on our audio team. And so we're kind of going to split it up into different segments. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is to kind of introduce ourselves as Audio at Epic. We felt it was important to kind of communicate the scope and scale of Audio at Epic. We kind of put our, resources together to kind of accumulate how much experience we have and where we came from. There's a lot of musicians, lots of game audio experience between us. From an audio programmer standpoint, we have a lot of audio programmers, but we also have a ton of sound designers and composers, and the team is quite massive at this point. I think the audio muscle at Epic is pretty large. Especially with the acquisition of Harmonix. Harmonix, as you guys know, is a sort of premier immersive musical experience maker. So they're working with us on some really exciting stuff we can't talk about, but there's a lot of audio people there. We also have Bandcamp acquisition. With Bandcamp, they bring experience with music marketplaces and discoverability and working with the community and composers. And we acquired Rad Game Tools last year, and Rad brings a ton of experience for audio. One of the technologies we're very excited about is Bink Audio. So it's essentially a now completely proprietary, wholly owned audio codec by Epic. And of course, we work on our own games. You might have heard of Fortnite, but also Psyonix Rocket League and Mediatonix Fall Guys. And we have many constantly churning projects, some of them which are announced and some of which you see through things like City Sample Game and Matrix Awakens and things like that. So we were very surprised that we managed to put together an actual demo reel in the time for GameSoundCon. We collaborate with a lot of different partners, internal teams and external teams, and we'd like to do this every year if we can. So if you're interested in getting some of your sample content in a next year's sizzle reel, let us know. And we can see if we can incorporate it, because we would love to showcase really cool projects made in UE audio. So before we move on to some feature work, I wanted to emphasize that we ourselves are game developers. One of our core philosophies at Epic is that audio is a co-equal discipline. One of the exciting things about working at Epic is that it's a fundamentally multidisciplinary environment from standpoint of content creators, other artists, game designers. All of our audio people are deeply integrated in the creation process for our games. And the same is true of the development of technology. As an audio engine team, we are deeply integrated into the larger engine team and are part of the overall technological process where we feel audio should be. So from a technological perspective, we have a sort of vision which guides our approach to our technology and how we develop things. So we kind of broke it down into three main areas. One of them is extensibility. We believe in extensibility on the engine team so much that all of our features, as much as possible, are themselves implemented as plugins. So that forces us to think in terms of API design, and in terms of flexibility, in terms of using our tech as an example of what can be done, but not necessarily as the way it should be done. So even something as exciting as MetaSounds, which, if you haven't heard, is a procedural audio creation environment, is itself done in a plugin. So other examples of API usages that we collaborate with and people in the community work on are things like Google Resonance, Microsoft Project Acoustics, which was actually highlighted in the demo reel, Oculus from Meta, and Steam Audio from Valve, and of course Dolby with Dolby Atmos. Part of that too is trying to push openness, both in terms of our APIs in terms of extensibility, but also promoting open platforms and open APIs as much as possible. MetaSounds is itself architected itself to be open. Our hope is someday that MetaSounds could become an open format for metaverse style experiences. It's called MetaSounds with a metaverse forward thinking. We are in contact and working with the people behind Clap, which is a new VST plugin API. It's a VST replacement API that's actually open, an open standard. We hope it'll take over the digital audio workstation space, and we would like Unreal Engine to be one of the first game engines that actually implement it and support it. And then, of course, we have this new thing that we're announcing, not of course, you may not have heard of it, is AudioLink. AudioLink is an API that we're working on that will hopefully integrate UE audio into the constellation of tools that you may have already used in the past, such as middleware and digital audio workstations. I want to go a little bit more into AudioLink. So AudioLink is essentially open and extensible. It's an API. All of the audio in UE can itself be experienced in other tools. And eventually, we haven't done this yet, but we'll also ingest audio from other tools. So for example, your digital audio workstation working directly in Unreal Audio. So we're excited to announce that in 5.1, in the next release of Wise, we actually have AudioLink for Wise implemented in collaboration with Audiokinetic. And it'll be available for Unreal Engine Wise users by default. It'll be a plugin that comes with Unreal Engine, and you'll have complete access to UE audio, meta sounds, and all that stuff directly in Wise. So this is a video demonstration by our developer who worked on it, Jimmy Smith.
Did you try meta sounds, but your game is using Wise? Well, now you can. This is AudioLink, and I'm running it with Project Lyra. So what you're seeing right here is the game of Lyra running. I can now open Wise up, which is being sent all of the submixes that I've asked it to, and unmute it and hear the game. Now everything you're hearing here is being generated by Unreal Engine and sent to Wise. These are then attenuated in Wise. And ultimately played back to the device by Wise. This allows you to mix and match both Wise and meta sounds in your title. Now Wise is running here in the background, and everything you're seeing and hearing on screen is being made by Unreal but sent to Wise. I can use the 3D game profiler and see where all the sounds are around the listener here, as you would expect in Wise. I can author the attenuation sets in real time. Here's the attenuation set I'm using for the game currently. But I could rein this right back in and mute the game here. And turn this back up to a sensible level. That should do it. AudioLink for Wise allows you to simply convert a project over to AudioLink. By default, everything is sent to AudioLink if you have the plugin enabled. Wise will actually include AudioLink by default, so if you're running Wise, you'll automatically get this for free with UE 5.1 and the 2022 full release of their plugin.
Thank you. I think the idea for AudioLink came up as sort of like, I wonder if we can do it, and then started thinking about it. We totally could do it. Let's do it. So I'm very excited about AudioLink, and I hope you all try it. If you are a Wise user and you're interested in UE audio and we're thinking maybe this is a good opportunity to check out our tech without having to completely abandon your existing workflows. So finally, we wanted to close out the sort of foundational part of the talk with emphasizing the value of collaboration. We at Epic, along with being open and extensible, and this goes along with the idea that audio is a co-equal discipline, we highly value collaboration internally at Epic. We have Slack channels where people can share ideas and we can riff. We have workshop meetings where we work directly with people from all parts of the company. We have a lot of technical artists who are actually presenting in our track this week. And I think it's just a great example of how we treat and value collaboration. Part of that, too, is collaboration with the community. A lot of us on the audio engine team and the content creators at Epic are involved in the community. We are making new content for the Epic developer community, which I highly recommend if you haven't checked it out. It's a really great resource with people publishing all kinds of tutorials, including ourselves, but also from the community. It's a great way to interact with each other. It's a great way to get your name out there, too, if you're trying to sort of establish yourself in the industry. It's a good way to contribute to the community. It's a good way to get your name out there. We're involved in forums. We've got lots of forums. There's also some sort of unofficial channels that we hang out on. Like we have a Facebook group called Epic Audio Engine Tips and Tricks. Unreal Audio Engine Tips and Tricks, and a Discord called Unreal Slackers, and a couple other places that we hang out. And we are always communicating with the public through our roadmaps, which we regularly check out to see if there's input on where the community thinks we should work on. So all of these are QR coded. If you're there to try to take it, we can send you links later. And of course, we're always open to technological collaboration. So if you're out there working on some really cool new tech, we have multiple avenues where you can explore. Lyra Sample Game is a great place for you to experiment with your audio tech, just like we've done with Audio Link and Project Acoustics and Dolby Atmos. It's a really great bed to try out new technology extensions. And of course, we have Epic Mega Grants. This is a thing that Unreal or Epic Games has sort of opened up for the last couple of years to the community. And there are a lot of audio projects that get applied and get funded that we're happy to support. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Dan, who is going to chat about some of the upcoming features in 5.1. This is basically a deep dive on just a handful of things that we wanted to highlight. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so this release has been really unique for me because usually my role at Epic is to work with the audio engine development team, to consult with them on feature dev and prototype and experiment and sometimes even test. And this has been like the first release where I haven't been able to try everything out. The team has hit such a velocity that there's just a lot. There's a lot of cool features. So I definitely just recommend checking. It's free to download. Check it out. There's a lot in there. So this is just a highlight of some features coming out in 5.1. So one of the cool parts about being a game developer, that Epic Games makes games, is that this, for example, is a feature that was developed by the audio gameplay one of the audio gameplay programmers on Fortnite, for Fortnite, and it was basically the next step. If y'all remember the old audio volumes from the days of yore, this is sort of like the next generation of that feature set, which is to say a sort of volumetric mechanism for altering audio, sounds inside the volume, sounds outside the volume, that sort of thing, listeners inside the volume, etc. But it's dynamic, it's an actor, it's not based off of the old legacy volume system. It's this is from a little GIF screen from Fortnite where they actually used it in these bubbles. If you play Fortnite, then you've probably already experienced some of this. But yeah, this is something that's very easy to check out. And what's very cool, I think is cool, is that it's extensible. So instead of all the features are sort of baked in, they just come as components, and then you can add them as you please. So customize your own experience, but then also you can make your own components and blueprints and natively. And so we think it's a pretty cool direction to start taking this type of feature. Similar story, actually. This is a tool that I built for myself. And I work on a lot of special projects, advanced projects. This is like the GDC demos that Epic does. And I got tired of building an ambient sound system from scratch every time. And so I decided to make it a plugin so I could just pluck it from one project to the next project to the next project with me. And instead of building it from scratch, I just expanded on the features as needed. And so the version that so Aaron liked it enough and was like, hey, make it an engine plugin. And this is just one of those things where it's like, we work on stuff internally and then we just make them features that everyone can use in their projects, which is really cool. So this is the version as it was for the Matrix Awakens / City Sample. And if you download 5.1, it'll just be there available for you to turn on if you like. So the idea is fast proceed. Like I usually worked on those projects alone, so I had to stand up an ambient world very quickly. So it's designed to sort of build procedural ambient environments very fast, and it's stateful, and there's a lot of cool things that I've built into it. I actually have a whole talk on it later on today. If you're curious about some of this stuff like the spatial filtering, I can go more into depth about there. This is something that's probably just always going to happen. There's always going to be some updates to MetaSounds coming around the corner, the next version, which is exciting. That means it's a constantly growing constellation of tools and tricks that you can sort of continuously build and expand on.
A super fast MetaSounds high level TLDR.
Oh yeah, sorry. So some of y'all might have used graph style DSP systems like Max. I haven't. I've used Reactor. But the idea is to expose all the really cool stuff to designers. And that way you don't have to have a programmer. So like here we've got, a grain delay and a filter, and you can just sort of wire up your own audio system entirely. Like if you're familiar with modular synthesis, you'll be super comfortable in this environment. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, go to our booth and play around.
We also have a whole bunch of MetaSounds talks later today.
Yeah, there's going to be we're going to be packed with MetaSound talks. What's cool about MetaSounds is that a couple of our speakers who are going to be doing really cool demos are not audio people. They're like VFX artists, but they just they have, like we do, music in our hearts, and they took to it really, really well. So we think it's a very cool environment to design sounds, and the future in a really, for better or worse, the future is going to be increasingly procedural, and so we want to sort of expose those sorts of things to the users and the designers to just make that easier. Oh yeah, so here's another example of game audio programmers on other projects inside Epic needing tools and just sort of feeding back into the engine. So this was designed by one of the audio programmers at Psionics, and Psionics has been sort of transitioning from using Wise themselves on Rocket League to working inside of Unreal, and they really dig it, but there are some things that they missed, like a wave editor. And so we're like, yes, please. Like, yeah, let's have it. So 5.1, we've got a wave editor, and we expect this to another feature to kind of continue to grow and expand, and the UX to improve as we go along. And then this is something that's more like a home field advantage, an advantage that we get because we work inside the Unreal Engine architecture. And so this is a feature that was designed just sort of generally for Unreal, and it's a way to separate the asset data from the bulk data. So for example, let's say all the gameplay asset data in your sound wave from the bulk PCM data, right? And this works with Perforce. So when you're syncing your project, you actually only sync the bulk data you end up actually using, and you can ignore the stuff that you're not working with, which is going to improve sync times and all that sort of stuff. So it's exciting. This is just sort of like bonus of being inside Unreal. So yeah, I think that's my fast zoom through the highlights. Like I said, there's a lot more to check out, and so I recommend both checking out our booth, checking out some of the talks, and also checking out our roadmap. We'll put the QR code back up, I think, before the end. So I will hand it now over to our product manager, Grace.
All right, nice to meet everyone. I'm Grace. I'm the product manager for UE Audio. And I'm here to talk about roadmaps. I'm super excited about roadmaps. I hope you are too. But before we get into there, a little bit about my role. I'm really here for you. My role is to get out there, find out how people are using our tools, understand what things they really like, things that they think we could be doing differently to make what you do easier. And my role is really to take all of that feedback, to kind of meet you wherever you're hanging out, and to get that feedback back to the team so we could shape what we build on next. So here's just a few examples of places that Aaron had mentioned where we hang out. You know, if you're on Discord, come find us. If you like LinkedIn, that's another place that we're sharing roadmaps and all the work we're doing. We also run live streams whenever we get the chance to talk about audio and really connect with our community there. Lots of comments in there, and I assure you I read every single one of them, and we take that feedback to the team. So your feedback is heard. Keep that coming. We also run surveys for some of our larger licensees to make sure we're getting feedback for kind of larger teams and what that experience is like, as well as the Epic developer community. We've seen some feature requests come there, so definitely keep that coming for us, please. On the topic of roadmaps, we're really excited that for the last few releases, we have been publishing our roadmap to give you a sneak preview of what's to come. There's a really easy way you could actually provide feedback for us. When you click on each one of these cards, you get a description of what we're thinking for that, and you could flag to us how important you think this feature is to you or your project. You could even leave an email or a contact if you want us to maybe give you updates or get a chance to contact you. So definitely do that. So our next priorities, we're not just going to double down, we're going to triple down on audio insights, which is our way of allowing you to debug and profile what you've built. More on that to come, but I really just wanted to emphasize this is the single top priority from our team. We've heard really loud and clearly with all of our licensee feedback in the forums. Anytime we engage with people, this is the number one thing I think people are asking for, so we're really going to make it happen. We're also going to continue to build out on meta sounds. So this is really our chance to make it more accessible. We're talking about building a meta sounds preset editor where people can curate inputs and make it easy for you to share what you've built. So a little bit more on that. So the approach that we took here, it's important that we kind of think through like how we're thinking about this. We're not just thinking of like little features that we're just going to keep kind of shipping in separate kind of pieces. We're really thinking about holistically what that end-to-end workflow is going to be for our users and creators within the context of teams. So for something like Audio Insights, and again, if you haven't actually used our profiler, memory profiler in UE, it's called UE Insights, and this is really an extension of that with audio coming online now to this bigger tool that a lot of people are used to using already. But with this workflow, we're really thinking through how do we work end-to-end. So we really want to make sure that we incorporate audio insights within the editor, so we're really keeping people in the same tool and not having them shift around. We're also thinking through how somebody on the team, like maybe somebody from QA, might discover something's not playing, something's not happening when it should, and thinking through what's that process for them to capture that log and then be able to share it with you so you can then jump in. A little bit more on that later. And the other thing I really want to emphasize is we're really focusing in on really high, the use cases that people really want to, be able to hit. So something like, why isn't my sound playing is a very common thing I think that a lot of us run into. So we're really starting with a very targeted use case, and we want to really solve that end-to-end and make that process really fun to use, possibly. And so from there, jumping in again to what that workflow looks like. So imagine you have somebody on your team, they're on QA, they're testing, they think a sound should be playing, and maybe it's not playing at that point in time. From there, what we're thinking, and again, all of these are just ideas we have, so we'd love to hear your feedback later to see if we're hitting the right things here. But we see there's a mode you could set where you can say, hey, I want to do a tail trace of, the last 20 seconds of what I was doing last. Maybe it's by file size of how much, space you want to leave on your hard drive. But there would be this active logging that happens behind the scenes. So as soon as you see something's not playing, you hit a button or a shortcut key, and then you get this full log without having to go back and reproduce it. At that point, someone from QA could then pass it on to maybe you or someone else on your team. And the key thing here is you actually don't necessarily need that project synced up. So with what you've captured here, we envision you can open up Audio Insights and actually be able to see and play back everything that was there and scrub through the events. And I'll show you a mock-up on the next screen. But of course, if you do have the project synced up, then you get direct integration to things like blueprints and being able to jump to your audio files. But that's that end-to-end workflow. We really want to make sure that everyone who's working with you is part of this and that they're not kind of separated. So here is an example mock-up of what we think that first look for that Audio Insights is going to look like. I'll walk you through it, but I really want to emphasize this is just a mock-up. I actually threatened to come with some art I drew, which looked really bad, and somebody said, no, we can't come to here with this. So it looks polished, but it's not emphasizing. This is really just a way for us to communicate what we're thinking at first, but we want to hear your feedback. This is what we would think of as like a command center view when you first open up the tool. It's meant to be a high-level overview. On the left top here, you have some video capture, which allows you to see what was actually being rendered in the game. That's usually a quick way to kind of be able to remember what was happening, so you could start to kind of narrow in on points in time and show your team. There's the transport there, so you can jump around in time. And as you skip through time, the rest of the screen you see here will update for what data was happening at that point in time. So we'll have things like a list of sounds that are currently playing at that time displayed. You can imagine you'd probably be able to hover over that and see details about those audio files, maybe be able to quickly play them kind of on spot without having to hunt them down yourself. This is just one view. We have multiple other tabs that we have in mind here. So something like a full mixing view, we think, is something that for people who really just want to go deep with all their submixes and see everything in one view, that could be a separate view in this tool. With all the different graphs we have here, they're drop down. So this means that you get to select the submixes or the things that you care most about and want to see easily. If loudness, let's say, is something that you're working on, you want to check for loudness averages, this is a quick way for you to be able to see those trends of things that are going up and down where you might not expect it to be. And as you're scrubbing through those playheads, everything else on what was showing in the game will then kind of show up at the same time. When you hit play, you'll actually hear the rendered audio as it was captured. So as somebody who actually was playing that game would have heard. So that's very powerful for sharing and to be able to bring people into what you saw. Down on the bottom here where the submixes are, this is our way of communicating with drop-downs. You could nominate the submixes you want to get more details on. You can mute and solo them. So in the case where somebody captured an event happening in the game, you would be able to go back and actually, narrow in on a submix particularly that you want to hear again in that context. However, we also see this being something you can use in live mode, which means if you have the game running and you're running this, you could actually use it to, in real time, actually adjust the mixes and almost kind of like tune your game to, something that you're happy with. So it kind of has two modes, I would say, in that. So definitely give us your feedback on this. Again, just emphasizing, this is our first kind of pass at this. We do anticipate it'll be something that users can extend as well. So in the example of Dan saying he wrote the Soundscape plugin, if Dan wanted to, we could see him writing yet a tab or a view in here that allows for some Soundscape-specific debug profiling use cases. All right, so MetaSounds preset editor. This one's kind of neat. It's really around how do we make MetaSounds more accessible and allow for discoverability and more kind of experimentation. So in 5.0, what we released in UE is the ability to create really powerful MetaSounds. Again, there's lots of talks later today that'll touch on what that looks like. Definitely check those out. Under kind of with the MetaSound graphs, you have the ability to nominate inputs, which are things that you could change in real time as the graph is running. So with MetaSound Preset Editor, what this is about is kind of creating a curated, I would almost call it like a presentation view that really shows what things you can interact with. And the power behind this is that it abstracts and really organizes what is possible in the MetaSound graph you built without exposing kind of everything in one go. So this is going to be something you can imagine. We know that layout really informs and influences how people think of design and audio. So this is your chance to really group the things that matter together. There's really that experimentation piece of it, which is you'll see some like mock-up locks next to things. So maybe you want to lock some of these things down, hit randomize, and kind of see what happens, what new sounds get created. So again, it's kind of a little bit of a playground where things aren't, just locked. The other thing is we do see a place at some point where we're going to allow people to share these, upload them somewhere so anyone could discover them, as well as you could pull them down and do some kind of surfing. So maybe you're looking for some vehicle sounds. There might be an easy way that just allows you to bring that right into your project, and these would be the sliders that you could experiment with and hook up through Blueprint. One thing that I know people are really excited to hear about is these automation lanes that we have on the bottom. So, it's no fun to create a system and then pretend and tune dials to what you think might happen. A better approach really is to allow for real gameplay inputs to be parameterized into your system. So with this, if you're building something like a vehicle again, you can imagine automation lanes coming in for things like velocity and driving kind of the system that you've built so you could really play it back in a very real way. So we want to hear your feedback on this. This is just, thoughts. Again, I know it looks polished. I also threatened to come in with a hand drawing of this one. And so it looks like it's done, but it's not. And then taking this one step further, because I know there's a lot of people here that just want to go super deep. Here's an example of some work that Dan's been working on that allows for UMG interface support. So the idea here is it's taking it one step further, so you have ultimate control over what that layout looks like. Everything from the button, you can bring things like textures into this. So imagine if you're shipping tools after, you could then skin it and customize it with wood texturing and really make it look like something you could go into the store to buy.
What's UMG?
Oh, you probably have a better description of this one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we're not at Unreal Fest. At Unreal Fest, where we just came from, probably lots of people would know what UMG is, but this is a... If you don't know, it's Unreal's sort of what you see is what you get editor, so you don't have to be a programmer to make it. It's a whole separate tool. It's existed for a long time. So it's allow you basically to not be a programmer and make like your VST skeuomorphic interfaces. So it's an existing tool that will just extend and support in your preset editor.
Awesome. Yeah, so, and I guess the other thing to mention here is with our system, where we saw the screenshot before, the mappings were one-to-one. So if you had, one knob on that preset editor view, that would map to one input in your MetaSound graph that you could toggle. Through a system like this with Blueprint scripting, you could actually map one of these knobs to multiple inputs behind the scenes, so allowing for more complex interactions. We do have, the priorities that we just shared with you earlier, but we have a pretty extensive roadmap internally that we've been using to guide, other work that we're considering. This is just a kind of little sampling of some of those things on here. I won't go through everything, but, as you can imagine, MetaSound will continue to get updates through extra nodes through each release. We're also looking at editor updates, so bringing audio closer to other parts of the UE editor. As an example, deeper integration with Sequencer, which is one of the tools our animators usually use. We're looking at bringing MetaSound into that as well. And more plug-and-play systems. So on the gameplay side, as an example, we're looking at possibly bringing in more plug-and-play direct audio integration into things like our Chaos vehicles so that people have something to start with. So again, your feedback is very important on this. So if there's use cases or things that you think aren't on here that we should be considering, let us know. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. And with that, that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for coming and joining our talk today.
Thank you.